Presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are St. Louis.
This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and tonight from our nation's capital, it's game number one of a four-game series. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Washington Nationals. Greg Garcia has been called back up. It's a look at Arcia in the driver's seat. Best record against the Nationals since '08. The Cardinals 14 games above 500. With Jim Hayes and Tim McCarver, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Welcome to St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Tim, we're just past the quarterway point of this regular season. Where do the Cardinals stand right now?
Well, what are the elements of baseball? Good starting pitching, a good bullpen, good offense, running the bases well, fielding, particularly up the middle. The Cardinals have had spurts of greatness, but you're going to have more than spurts if you're going to play in October. The
hottest pitcher right now in the Cardinals rotation is Mike Leake. He'll get the call tonight. And we take a look at our Budweiser What's on Tap. We're moments away from our first pitch. Aledmys Diaz will bat second. And this season on the road, one of the best performers in the game. Nationals Cardinals coming up. Malibu. And by Menards, save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. Beautiful night here in our nation's capital, Nationals Park. And along with Tim McCarver and Jim Hayes, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Delighted to have you with us as the Cardinals begin a 7-game road trip. 4 here in Washington, then 3 in Milwaukee, back home for San Francisco a week from tomorrow. Joe Ross is a 22-year-old acquired along with Trey Turner, the future shortstop of the organization from the San Diego Padres. And partner, he gets the call tonight.
I think Joe Ross is a guy that the Cardinals line up tonight. We talked about all the elements of the game. I think they should be able to handle a guy like Ross. I mean, 5 left-handed hitters in the lineup for Mike Matheny, and all are low ball hitters. All handle the ball very well. The ball down. Hazelbaker, Adams, Moss, Long, and Garcia. So we'll see.
Jeremy Hazelbaker will lead it off as Matt Carpenter is on the paternity list, expecting the arrival of their first child, he and his lovely wife. And if you're on the paternity list, you must miss 1 game but no more than 3. That was started back in 2011. So Hazelbaker in the leadoff spot. Matt's lovely wife Mackenzie. Here's an 0-1 pitch from Joe Ross. Quickly, no balls, 2 strikes. Most of the damage done this year by Jeremy Hazelbaker has been coming off the bench. And he's not the only one. The Cardinals pinch hitters have been the best in baseball this year.
That's what National League pitchers have resorted to with Jeremy, is coming up with 2 strikes. We've seen him swing and either pop it up or swing through it with 2 strikes. One of the adjustments of after you've played 750 games in the minor leagues that you have to make when you finally make it.
Jeremy hitting .255, 7 home runs, 19 driven in. And he pulls it fair down the right field line. Over to cut it off is Bryce Harper, and a leadoff base hit for Hazelbaker. Missouri Lottery Fox tracks this pitch on the inside corner.
And up a little bit, a little above the waist, it looked like, or maybe waist high. You know, it looked like Harper was trying to bait Hazelbaker into going to second base, kind of ambling after the ball instead of getting the ball quickly and releasing it, kind of timing it, and with that strong arm try to get Jeremy at second base.
We forget Harper originally signed as a catcher.
That's right. That's right. Very strong throwing arm. Yeah.
Here's Aledmys Diaz. He's batting .331, tops on the Cardinals, and 6th best in the National League. Daniel Murphy, who's not in the lineup tonight, leads the senior circuit at .394. Only 16 strikeouts this year for Diaz.
Always tries to put the ball in play. Good hit and run man. One thing befuddling Aledmys now is his chess game. The only Cardinal to beat Aledmys in chess, you know who it is? Jed Jerko.
That's it, huh?
Beat him twice, and he's very upset about that. He told me before the game. That's a new game that has taken over the Cardinals in their clubhouse.
Usually it's video games and deciding which music to put on, but now it's chess.
Now it's chess.
Were you a chess player?
No.
Pinochle.
I love to play bridge, and with the Phillies in the late 70s, of a 25-man roster, we had 2 tables of bridge. That's 8 players. That's unheard of. One was a coach, Ray Ripplemeyer, of Baltimore, Illinois.
Here's a 1-1. Little squibber that rolls foul.
I think a lot of people, you know, consider those unusual games for baseball players, but usually gin. Some of the players play poker. Hearts is big. There's Jed Jerko, chess champion de rigueur.
We got to get him with Rex Singfield, who has got the Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis.
Really? Get out of here.
Based in St. Louis in the Central West End. And Rex is a huge Cardinal fan and obviously a huge fan of the game of chess.
Wow.
Here's a 1-2. And a ground ball. Could be 2. Drew tags out the runner. It's a double play. If he flips to short, it probably doesn't turn into a double play, but with the tag it does.
I agree with you, Dan. But certainly the right play by Stephen Drew was to try to tag the runner. And Hazelbaker, trying to avoid the tag, I think went out of the baseline. This is always tough. See, he tagged him with the glove, not with the ball. So from a tag standpoint, he was safe. So it had to be out of the line, because that was not a clean tag. He tagged him with the glove and the ball's in the right hand. So the double play's completed, but not like you thought it might be.
And it brings in Matt Adams. Mentioned this the other day, that Adams teams are shifting about 75% of the time against him, Tim, and 70% of his base hits have been either up the middle or to left, and yet they play the shift on Adams.
Well, he's hitting the ball to left field in the air, and all season long the outfield is about straight away. Worth in left field, and in center field shaded maybe a step or two. One thing that surprised everybody is his power to left center field.
Sure. Hit .458 on the homestand, and he has the most RBIs in the National League since the 11th of May with 14.
That's 15 days.
The 2-1 pitch.
That was a good slider and a fastball count from Joe Ross. You hear that term, electric stuff. Well, Joe Ross fits into that category. From Berkeley, California.
2-2 pitch. He's part of the 2011 draft class, number 26 overall by San Diego, as he had committed to pitch at UCLA, and then the Padres made him an offer he couldn't refuse. The 3-2. Hit out of play. And there was not a horse's head in his bed when he decided to sign that deal.
Dan and I, for you folks who may not know, we're huge movie buffs, and that line, "See Michael" from The Godfather, probably the greatest movie ever made.
As Adams swings and misses, and he strikes out. The first strikeout for Joe Ross. Mike Leake to the mound when we come back for St. Louis. Park. Jim Hayes, Tim McCarver, Dan McLaughlin with you. 82 degrees and a beautiful night here for baseball. Good to see him back in a dugout. That's Dusty Baker as Ben Revere leads it off, and then Jason Worth and Bryce Harper. Ryan Zimmerman will bat cleanup. Anthony Rendon, Wilson Ramos, Stephen Drew, Danny Espinosa, the switch hitter, and the pitcher batting ninth, Joe Ross, and Mike Leake. Partner gets the call tonight.
Mike Leake has almost been like Joe Ross this year. Joe Ross started off 3-0 and then 0-4 in his last 4 starts. Mike Leake started off 0-3 and 3-0 in his last 3 starts. So Mike's turned it around on the plus side, not so Joe Ross. One thing Mike has been able to do is stay ahead. First pitch strikes.
So important, that first pitch strike as he throws ball 1. Right on cue, right?
Yep. Sorry.
Rivera is 9 for his last 20. Missed 27 games with a right oblique strain.
Particularly in this day and age, because you don't see that many first ball hitters anymore. Guys are preaching patience, taking more pitches, trying to get a pitcher's pitch count up. So more pitchers should be like John Lackey now and throw first pitch strikes.
There's a high fly ball lifted into center field. Hazelbaker puts it away for the out. A look at the Cardinals defensively with Moss, Hazelbaker, Piscotty, that trio in the outfield. Garcia, Diaz, Wong, and Adams on the infield, and Yadier Molina is behind the plate. August 27th of 2011. Last time that Mike Leake beat Washington. So it's been a long time.
6 starts since then.
And the first pitch is strike to Worth, who is 7 for 21 against the Cardinals right-hander. Line shot into center. Hazelbaker there for out number 2. The Hyundai pitch arsenal for Mike Leake. Not a hard thrower, fastball, cutter, sinker, slider, change, and a knuckle curve.
And the one thing he did with that last pitch was something that he wasn't doing at the beginning of the year, and that was coming inside on hitters. When you're not a hard thrower, it's even more imperative to come inside, because by coming inside, you get a lot of hitters outside.
Joe Madden did something against Bryce Harper that more teams now are trying to do, which is just say, look, we're not going to deal with you, we'll walk you. Harper, it was an interesting strategy. They had a 4-game series after St. Louis at Wrigley Field. They didn't pitch to him. He walked 13 times in 19 plate appearances. And essentially they said, let the guys behind you beat us if you're going to beat us. Well, Ryan Zimmerman went 1 for 19 in that series.
Hitting
they were swept.
Harper.
Right. 15 games since that series, he's hit 195. 3-0.
He has a hit sign anytime he wants to hit. 3-0, 2-0, doesn't matter. And there's Zimmerman on deck.
3-0 pitch. 3-1. Cardinals, though, have challenged him. And if you go back the last 3 years, a span of 26 games, Harper has only hit 164 against St. Louis. No home runs. 3-2.
Even Harper's batting average down. I mean, here's a team a half a game in first place in late May, and yet they enter tonight's action with one guy hitting over 250. One, and that's the catcher, Wilson Ramos.
3-2 pitch, and he struck him out. From 3-0 to a strikeout, and a 1-2-3 inning for Mike Leake. No score after 1. Stephen Piscotty leads it off. He's batting cleanup in this lineup, followed by Moss, Molina, Wong, Garcia, and Leake. Surprising a little bit not to see Daniel Murphy in there.
Yeah, speaking of lineups, I'd like to amend what I said. It's not that the Washington Nationals don't have a guy hitting over 250 on their team, because Daniel Murphy leads the league in hitting. But in tonight's lineup, one guy's hitting over 250, and that's Wilson Ramos, the catcher. Just wanted to correct that.
Good start here for Piscotty. He is 7th overall in batting at .328. Leads the club in runs with 32. That's 5th best. Gregory Polanco at 34 for the Pirates to lead the league. Daniel Murphy with 24 multi-hit games, and right behind him, Stephen Piscotty, second with 19.
We talked about consistency and bringing all the elements of your game together. Piscotty has represented that for the Cardinals so far this year. You might say, well, Diaz has had a hot bat. He has, but a little faulty defensively.
2-2. Last start for Ross, 3 runs on 8 hits, a couple of walks, struck out 7 and 5 2/3. It was a loss to Miami. As Piscotty hits it into left center field, over to get it is Worth, and a sliding catch. The Nationals defense, only 18 errors, tied with the Mets for the fewest in the league, with Worth, Revere, Harper in the outfield, Rendon, Espinosa, Drew Zimmerman along the infield, and Wilson Ramos is behind the plate.
Jason Worth is 6'4½". It's easier for him to slide to make a catch than it is for him to bend over and make a catch because of his height. If he's 6 feet, that's different. That's something you don't see too often, a ball inside knocking a hitter off the plate, ever.
Moss hits into the shift. Few steps to his right. Stephen Drew for out number 2. The Hyundai pitch arsenal for Joe Ross.
Oh, sinker slider. That'll take you back to an era 50 years ago. You don't see too many guys coined as a sinker slider pitcher now. That change, by the way, is a work in progress.
Called up at the age of 22, as we mentioned, and this is Molina. He was asked about what he learned from his first year in the major leagues, and he said that these guys can hit a fastball. Doesn't matter that I throw 96, sometimes 98, and that's why he threw a year ago nearly 40% sliders, and this season 36%. Very tough on those right-handed hitters. They're hovering around 200 against him, so that's why there are a lot of lefties in this lineup.
That's probably the one prerequisite for a major league hitters: handling the fastball. Got to be able to turn around the heat.
Oh, he's got a nice free and easy motion. Ball jumps out of his hand.
Yeah, great arm, great delivery. Feels his position well. Great move to first base.
The 2-1 pitch. Here's the younger brother of Tyson Ross. Those two lived together in the offseason, trained together. Tyson, a pitcher with San Diego. And as we mentioned, this young man drafted by the Padres and then traded over to Washington. It was a 3-team deal. And Trey Turner, part of that big deal as well. And the Nationals thrilled with that trade because they get a frontline starter potentially as time goes on, and also an everyday shortstop at Trey Turner. 3-2 the count on Yadier Molina. Lines it to Stephen Drew for the out. So the ground out, a line out, and this catch to begin the top of the second from Jason Worth. As Tim mentioned, nearly 6'5", and sliding to make this grab in left center. No score midway through 2. Second, let's turn to Tim's Toyota key to the game.
Well, it's the same as our opening, to try to get all the facets that there are in the game moving forward, or at least the majority of those facets. Good pitching, good starting pitching. They've had bullpen for the most part has been great all year. Little hiccup lately, but they've been the strong part of the Cardinals so far this year.
This was the Nationals' first ever draft pick back in 2005. Ryan Zimmerman has made the transition from third base across the diamond to first. Dealt with arm issues, and they want to make sure and keep this bat in the lineup. Good player over the years.
Out of the University of Virginia, graduate. Lives in Northern Virginia. One of the real gentlemen of the game. A lot of power the other way. I'm a little surprised you see Hazelbaker going into left center field. He should be more into right center field. Outfield straight away. He's got great power the other way.
There's your fly ball into right. Stephen Piscotty makes the catch. You saw that shot of Rick Horton. He's working on the radio side, Tim. And well, if you haven't heard it, for the 1,587th time, he also went to the University of Virginia.
UVA. Charlottesville, about what, 110 miles from here, something like that.
Clearly, Rick is paying attention to the game as he texts. 6 is a serious number, and on the run, Cardinals scores 6. Any size drink, just 50 cents the next day. Coffee fountain, frozen drinks. When they score, you pour at your nearest on the run. Here's Anthony Rendon batting .340 his last 15 games and fouls it back.
I'm of that UVA sect also. My oldest daughter went to University of Virginia.
And were you happy with the education?
Yes. French major and doing very well, man. Thank you.
Here's an 0-1 pitch. Of course, it didn't cost that much to go there. I'm sure you were happy with that too.
Oh, then? This is like the early to mid 80s. Are you kidding me? It was a song then, not anymore. Oof. All college tuition. Sky high.
Lined into center field and a base hit. First hit allowed by Mike Lee. Well, you see the numbers, .86 ERA the last 3. So, Tim, let's dive into it a little bit more. What has made him successful the last 3?
We talked about some of it. It's a combination of a lot of things, I think, Dan. First pitch strikes. He's hitting the corners more. He's throwing inside the hitters more now. When you throw inside, you try to throw inside to make the outside pitch that much more effective. So it's a combination of a lot of things, not just one thing that's turned Mike's season around over the last 3 or 4 starts.
1 out runner at first. Wilson Ramos at the plate. Those 3 starts, the Angels, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, only 14 hits allowed in those 3 games. A late arriving crowd here to Nationals Park. Remember, the team played at RFK from 2005 until 2007. There's a fly ball out to right field. Catch made by Piscotty.
Again, coming inside to Wilson Ramos. Think about it. Had a fly ball to right center by Revere. Jason Worth, a right-handed batter, to right. Zimmerman to right. Ramos to right. Fly balls and outs.
I don't know if that's of concern at all, because he's a ground ball pitcher.
Well, if you're, I mean, you're not always going to be, depending on the lineup you're facing, you're not always going to get a ground ball. I know it's convenient, but that's not going to happen. But if you can get fly balls to the opposite field, right field from a right-handed hitter, left field from a left-handed hitter, that makes up for things.
His ground ball rate the last 3 games, 61%. So that's something that we've seen, and something else, and I'm sure it's a byproduct of having success in the games, but Leake is a very quick worker. He's always been that way, and it seemed like the first handful of starts, very slow, very deliberate.
That's a good point, and I think an accurate one. I've never seen a good pitcher that works slowly.
Anthony Rendon is a threat to steal with 5 this year. Another check and back in safely.
That's a lethal combination for base runners. Quick move to first base, and Yadier Molina behind the plate.
And as much as pitchers hold the ball and vary up their times, disrupt the rhythm of a runner, again a throw over.
Well, you got to be smart about it. You can't. You've got to disrupt the rhythm of a runner without disrupting your rhythm. Your rhythm in throwing the ball to the guy with the stick in his hand, that's the most important thing.
Many times you hear about a pitcher that rushes, then the arm drags, and balls get up. Here's Stephen Drew, hit 17 home runs last year with the New York Yankees. Limited time this year, coming off the bench, beat out Brendan Ryan for one of the final spots as a utility man on the bench for Dusty Baker. Brendan Ryan is now with the Angels.
We were talking about it before the game and wondering why Daniel Murphy, the league's leading hitter, is not in the lineup with Jaime Garcia going for the Cardinals tomorrow. Why not sit Murphy against the left-hander, being a left-handed hitter, and let him hit against David Lee or Mike Lee? Tell you, if you ask the Cardinals, they'll tell you they're glad Murphy's not in there tonight.
No question.
To a man.
He's hitting everything right now.
Oh my gosh.
Righties, lefties,
396.
Good player.
Good player.
Last year's MVP of the NLCS with the Mets, Daniel Murphy. 2 balls and 2 strikes on Stephen Drew. So the runner off with this pitch. 336 down the left field line. All different nooks and crannies on that outfield wall. 402 to dead center. 335 down the right field line. There goes Rendon, and the pitch is hit down the right field line.
Gotta hurry.
Rendon to third. They'll hold him up.
That is not an easy play for Stephen Piscotty. He's got to rush the throw, make sure he makes the play. A momentary bobble, and Rendon would try to score, perhaps make it. Ball hit very hard with Rendon running. Watch Stephen Piscotty to his left, makes the play, and gets it to the cutoff man as quickly as possible to hold Rendon to third base.
Cardinals were shading him to pull too, so that's a benefit of that. There's Danny Espinosa. Switch hitting shortstop, batting a .199. Runners at first and third with 2 outs here in the home half of the second. Good pitch to tie him up.
You could have thrown that ball under the plate, and Danny Espinosa would have swung at it. Looked like a major league hitter going up there and saying, I'm swinging at the first pitch. I don't care where it is.
How many times do you think guys do that?
Occasionally.
Just take the thinking out of it.
You're talking about with the first pitch, you know. Pitcher may be casual about things.
0-1 pitch. Now 0-2.
It's a bit of a gamble. Guy hitting 8th with a couple of men on base, try to put his team up by 3 runs right off the bat.
And the 0-2. Tap to the right side. A flip to Leak. Good athlete. Steps on the bag for the out. Here in our nation's capital, so many things to see. Just like the World War II memorial that was put up a few years ago. Breathtaking. Reigning MVP, unanimous choice from a year ago, one of the youngest MVPs in the history of baseball. With more on that, let's check in with Jim.
Dan, no question about it. Bryce Harper is one of the best players in baseball, but not everyone loves the way he goes about it. Too demonstrative, some would say, but count John Mozeliak and Mike Matheny among those that are fans of the way Harper plays the game. Matheny, very much an old school type of guy, but he says of Harper, he plays with excitement, and that's good for the game. Mozeliak agreeing, saying, I love his energy. It's fun to watch. Dan Matheny saying the thing that makes it work for Bryce, he's excited about what he's doing. It's not anything negative directed at his opponents.
Well, there's no doubting the talent of that young man.
No. On the cover of Sports Illustrated at the age of 16. 16.
And he's lived up to it.
Yes, he has.
Where do you stand on some of the things that he does?
I think he's a great player. I don't think he runs the ball out hard, but I think that is a problem with major league players. Not only Bryce Harper, but a lot of players.
Here's a 1-2 pitch to Colton Wong. Get off his bat. Luckily,
Holy
not his
cow.
hand.
Ball had to hit the knob. Those are the types of pitches that could, and the second time, by the way, that Ross has come inside to a left-hander. The ball hit the knob.
Sure did.
Very dangerous pitch.
Here's a 1-2. And Wong yanks it foul.
But there is no denying the talent of Bryce Harper. I thought when he was very young that somebody had to get in touch with him and say, Bryce, you're going too hard. I mean, this is a guy who was crashing into gates and the whole bit. I thought he was going to get hurt. Matter of fact, he did, diving into third base, messing up his thumb. Out for the season a couple of years ago. But he was the MVP in the National League last year, and there's no doubting his talent.
2-2 pitch to Colton Wong. And he pulls it down the right field line and foul. Bryce is from Las Vegas, and they say that his father, who is his best friend, worked with him at every step of the way. Always was there to throw batting practice, work on his throws from behind home plate. Those two very, very close. What a talent. Fouled back. You brought up something to me before the game I had forgotten about, was the series of Colton Wong in Washington a year ago. Probably his best series as a Cardinal. That was a year ago.
A series that we had seen him play. Great defense, great offense. Cardinals won 2 out of 3 from Washington.
Breaks his bat and a ground ball that's hit to second, taken by Drew. So some of those young MVP winners, Vida Blue certainly on this list. MVP and the Cy Young. Johnny Bench back in 1970. Stan the Man Harper and Cal Ripken Jr. Exclusive company right there.
Stash, Dobja, Stan, Dobja.
Now he's got a new barbecue sauce out now. The family put out Stan the Man barbecue sauce.
Man. No major league player was ever more aptly named than Stan the Man.
There goes that man again.
There goes that man. Here comes that man again.
Yeah.
Nicknamed at Ebbets Field. I think his lifetime average at Ebbets Field was 429 with 429 with over 40 home runs.
Wow.
No telling what he would have done. Of course, St. Louis had a small park too then. Grandin Dodier. That park ended in 1966 when they moved into Busch 2. May 12th was the first game that year in '66. But Stan the Man, what a player! May have been. I don't know how you could be a better low ball hitter than Stan Musial. The way he handled the low ball, it was almost like he hit with a shovel sometimes.
I always ask you about guys that remind you of this player or that player. Is there anybody, anything that a player does that takes you back and you say, well,
no,
he does a little bit like Stan?
Yeah. No.
I never hear that.
No. Well, number one is stance.
Hunched over.
Nobody can ever hit with that stance. I mean, that was the line. Like George Vesey, I think, who did the biography of Stan the Man, a great book, said it was like a little kid peeking around the corner. Wasn't that just fabulous imagery?
Here's Mike Leake, who is 2 for 15 with an RBI. No sacrifices this year.
I kind of like this. I kind of like turning Mike Leake loose. May switch to a bunt here. But we'll see Mike with a very good swing. A double his last start against Arizona.
Short lead at first by Greg Garcia. And the 0-1. Taps it out in front of the plate. Ross makes the play. That's like a bunt as Garcia advances to second.
Sure.
Cardinals continue their 4-game set in Washington this weekend. Friday right here on Fox Sports Midwest. Saturday on KTVI in St. Louis. Sunday back on Midwest, and we hope you join us. Here's Hazelbaker back to the top of the lineup. You know, there's a stat for everything. Joe Ross with a 1-2-3 second inning. The opposition is now 0 for 27 in the second inning against Joe Ross. He has not given up a hit, a walk, anything.
It's in 25 starts of his major league career. It's unbelievable. One hit batsman.
Inside to Hazelbaker. Jeremy singled to right first time up. Cardinals have been hitting a ton of home runs this year. 64. Just 2 back of the Mets at the start of play tonight. Top the senior circuit. And yet they don't have a player in the top 20 of home runs. Now, usually you think about it, if a team is you know, at the top of the list in home runs, there's somebody that's slugging a bunch.
Yeah, well, actually, what that means, and that's a very good point, but what that means is they're spreading it around.
Sure. One ball, 2 strikes on Jeremy Hazelbaker. Took some off it and strikes out. Second strikeout for Ross. We're midway through 3 and there's no score.
Innings ago about Mike Leake and what is the difference now. One of the things is his changeup. We talked about first pitch strike, throwing more inside, particularly to right-handers. That changeup to Stephen Drew, and even though Drew got a base hit, gives you an idea of how much off-speed stuff can really help a guy like Mike Leake. Can help any pitcher.
Short right field off the bat of Ross. 1 pitch, 1 away. That was a very good changeup there to Stephen Drew.
Ray Miller, a great major league pitching coach for the Pittsburgh Pirates, for the Baltimore Orioles, his mantra used to be work fast, throw strikes, change speeds. It's not a lot to remember. Work fast, throw strikes, change speeds.
And a high strike to Ben Revere.
Major league hitters and pitchers try not to clutter their minds with too much. Just enough is fine.
0-1 pitch and a ground ball that's hit to Adams. Flips to Leake for the out. Now what's interesting is that you saw the swing and miss there with Stephen Drew. That doesn't happen very often here with Mike Leake.
No, that's right.
Teams are putting it in play more times than not. Only 11.8% the swings and misses.
How about that? Lowest percentage of all opposition swings that miss. It's in the majors.
Hughes, Pfister, Colon, Latos, pretty good pitchers right there too.
Yeah.
So 2 outs and it brings in Jason Worth, 36-year-old that came up with Toronto all the way back in 2002. Grandfather Ducky Schofield, 19 big league seasons. Uncle Dick, 14. His mom competed in the U.S. Olympic trials.
Kim.
And back to Leake and a 1-2-3 for Mike Leake.
Remember, Kim as a toddler back in 1968 when Ducky Schofield was the backup shortstop for the Cardinals.
On Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. Beautiful night here in Washington. Candace Walton, big Cardinal fan, watching tonight on Fox Sports Midwest.
Damn, this game's going rapid fire, huh?
Well, now you jinxed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I know you're a big believer in that.
Yeah. Right.
We do that.
Of course we do.
It's our fault.
Of course it is. Everything is.
Diaz rips it down the left field line and foul.
Well, you talk about a crisp, tough swing on a hanging slider. That's the way to hit a hanging slider. A little lazy little looper. The players referred to it as a washing machine.
A little cement mixer.
Yeah, a little
just
cement mixer. That
spinning.
Spin cycle.
This one he keeps fair. Out to deep left center field, and it is gone into the bullpen. Aledmys Diaz with home run number 7, and the Cardinals have a 1-0 lead. That baby he kept fair.
Did he ever? Our guys in the truck right on top of everything, as they always are. We're going to show you both pitches, the foul ball first and then the home run. Almost identical.
It brings in Adams. Cup of water in the face of Aledmys Diaz from Carlos Martinez. He'll take it. Ross gave up 2 home runs in his last start. You know what's interesting? We told you about the numbers early on for Ross. First time through, just dominates a lineup. From the 4th inning on, his ERA jumps up to about 5. And here we are in the 4th inning.
It's odd. Well, with sinkers, the one thing that second time through the lineup may be that he tires a little bit the lower body, and that gets the fastball and slider up like that. So, you know, both breaking balls were up to Diaz. It's just one theory.
And the 1-2 is popped up. It'll find the seats behind home plate.
Here we go again with Aledmys Diaz. First pitch, slider, up, hanger, ripped down the left field line, foul. Second pitch, slider, up, home run. Diaz put the Cardinals on board.
Almost the identical pitch.
It was. First one may have been a little bit higher, but not much.
That's it out of play. Matt Adams may be forcing himself into this lineup more and more and more. He's putting up numbers. He's producing. Mike Matheny said whoever produces plays. Well, he's starting to do that. Hits it the other way for a base hit.
Hello, darling.
Nice piece of hitting.
That's one of those hello, darling swings right there. From big city, in a big city. Not even a strike. Fastball over the outside the corner. Look at that. Several inches off the plate.
I'm sure that swing becomes a little bit easier, realizing the shift is there, and if they're going to pitch you outside, just go with it.
Why not?
It brings in Piscotty. It was a sliding catch by Jason Worth to take a hit away.
One thing you can't do in situations like that is strain to go the other way. When it becomes a strain, it's got to be a natural flow. And that was a natural flow by a very powerful guy in Matt Adams.
It's a great point, because I think a lot of times in talking with him, very much in between on his swings, knowing that the left side is open, but just in between as to whether or not he should swing, take it that way, or look to drive it.
That's the worst thing for a hitter, is to be in between. As a matter of fact, we'll tell you what Dusty Baker said about Bryce Harper after this pitch in sitting him yesterday against the Mets.
Here's the 0-1.
What a great description Dusty had. He said the reason I'm sitting Bryce Harper against a tough left-hander yesterday, Steven Matz. He said he's ahead of the breaking ball and behind the fastball. And that is the perfect description of being in between. Ahead of the breaking ball and behind the fastball.
And Harper right now with the strikeout 0 for his last 11. He did pinch hit yesterday in the 8th and grounded out. And Piscotty lifts it in the air out to left, but to Jason Worth. One of the more likable guys in the game, and they say he is every bit a player's manager, and that's Dusty Baker.
Yes, sir.
San Francisco, Chicago, Cincinnati, and the Nationals.
You might think, well, aren't all managers players managers? The answer is no, they're not.
Emphatically no.
No, emphatically.
You should go down and talk to some of these players. They'll tell you about guys they didn't like.
Oh, yeah.
Here's Brandon Moss. It's such a fine line, too, if you're a manager. Bottom line, your job is to win games. But to win games, you have to have a buy-in of players a lot of times. And the players are saying, I'm trying to get the best out of my abilities in the prime of my career, make the most money I can, do what I can in this game for as long as I have it. You know, just the things that you have to balance. It's a lot. Moss grounded out into the shift his first time.
You know, the one guy that comes to mind, a guy who's a player manager, but he put the fear of God in the players at the same time. You may not agree with this, but Whitey Herzog, in a very strange way, and at the same time won fans over. They love Whitey Ball. Whitey Ball was a ruthless manager at times. I mean, tough. And I mean really tough. When you talk to the hitters, some of those clubhouse meetings he had, I mean tough.
I think
about running balls out.
Oh yeah.
I mean things that we know about certain players. I mean he was tough, but he could coddle the players. He had the perfect touch for me as a major league manager.
Well, I'd put it this way. The players had the ultimate respect for him.
Oh man, and they were afraid of him too.
I think Tony had a little bit of that too.
Oh, no question. But to me, Whitey more than Tony.
Why do you say that? Just
I don't know.
Being around it?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like say the last couple of Joe Torre, a fatherly figure, tough, but not like Herzog. Tony La Russa, tough, but not like Herzog. For me.
And the players always felt, and they still do, that those guys had their backs through the media, protect them with different things.
You bet.
Things stayed
That's what I mean about being tough. And at the same time, you know, Whitey always played before an adoring fan base.
Sure.
And that's something that Tony never played under. Joe Torre didn't have the players with the Cardinals back in the early 90s, but he did with the Yankees later, and New York adored him.
3-2 pitch. And a punch out of Moss. Superhero night at Busch Stadium coming up Tuesday, June 14th. Cardinals host the Astros. Fans purchasing the Superhero Night theme ticket receive an exclusive Cardinals Superhero t-shirt. It's all at cardinals.com/theme. I thought the one thing that Tony did that really helped win the fan base over for him, and there was multiple things. Number one is winning. And he won a lot, winning the first World Championship. But prior to that, the death of Darryl Kyle and guiding that team through an excruciating period, and a fan base with the loss of Jack Buck and their love affair with Jack and vice versa.
And giving you an idea of just how difficult a manager's job can be and what it entails to be a major league manager.
It just seemed like, Tim, with that team, there was no way they should have gone to postseason play. And they had guys like Travis Smith, who was making a start because they were, you know, Darryl was gone and they were trying to figure out who's going to fill that spot. Had to go out and acquire Chuck Finley. Andy Bennis discovered a split finger pitch when at one point in the season they didn't even want him around. I mean, it was crazy, and yet he kept it together and got them in. And the other thing that he did, did a show on KMOX where the fans would call in, and it was must listen to radio. And he was blunt, he was honest, and you could ask him anything you want. And if you ask Tony about it, he says that radio show was huge in his career in St. Louis. Really interesting.
I didn't know that about the KMOX situation. But all great managers, all three Hall of Famers, Whitey Herzog, Joe Torre, Tony La Russa, of a different ilk, handle things differently.
Whitey told me the other night in our speaker series, one of the things he was most proud of, if not the most proud of, in Kansas City and St. Louis, was that every year attendance went way up. So go up in 84, 85, it's even higher. 86, higher than that. And he brought re-energized baseball back into a great town in St. Louis.
Now, of course, by the time Joe Torre got to St. Louis, it couldn't go up any more because they were full every night. Same with Tony when Tony took over.
And the thing with Torre, you better have the horses that can play.
Oh, absolutely.
And he didn't have the players.
It's having the horses, but it's feeding them correctly. It's
leading them to water.
Leading them to water. It's leading them.
The 2-2 outside.
Leadership.
3-2.
It really defines leadership. But I can think of nobody who epitomized that leadership any more than Whitey Herzog.
So 3-2 with 2 outs. Adams off with his pitch. We'll do it again.
I love to talk to Whitey as you do. I mean, it's just nonstop baseball, and it seems to be. I remember Lou Brock's moving emotional when Lou took the trip around with the problems that Lou has had this year. Whitey wanted to talk about base running. Cardinals don't go from first to third enough. He's telling me behind home play. He just, he started barking at me. I mean, so it's my fault. I agree with you, Whitey. He was something, still is.
So is this guy here in 2016, Aledmys Diaz. One of the big surprises this year, not only for the Cardinals, but in the major leagues. His 7th home run. Cardinals on top. McLaughlin with you from Washington, D.C. And Jim Hayes, you have an update on a guy that we're all wishing well, and well, we wish he was on the mound this season. He's not, but coming back next year.
Yeah, our old friend Lance Lynn, who is coming back from Tommy John surgery, rehabbing at the Cardinal Complex in Jupiter. Lance is not only throwing, but he's already throwing off the mound. Lance says he's targeting throwing to hitters by mid-July. He told me pitching in games for the Cardinals this season is what he's working toward. He also told me he knows a lot has to go right for that to happen, but Dan, so far Lance is on or ahead of schedule, and that news is an absolute delight. And Dan, he's watching, so you probably want to go ahead and say hi, Lance.
Well, good evening, Lance.
Lance a lot.
We need him back here at some point. Lance is, I find him a lot of fun to be around because he's gruff. He's screaming out in the mound. He's putting that mean look at him. And I'll tell you what, when you're around about
first pitch strikes.
Yeah, but when you're around behind the scenes, he is fun. He's great with the
delightful
fans.
guy. Sure.
Great with kids.
Listen, guys change when they cross a white line.
No doubt.
All of them. They're supposed to.
One of the Cardinals was supposed to be at a camp last year, and it was a camp for kids, and decided, well, I'm not going to do it. Just at the last minute, they called up Lance Lynn, and I know this because my kids were at the camp. They called up Lance Lynn and said, hey, will you come and do it? He said, yeah, absolutely. I'll show up. Now here's this big burly guy, about 6'4", 6'5". He comes in, and I'm telling you what, Tim, he could not have been any more gracious with the parents and with the kids, and you know how kids are. Hey, Lance, what's your favorite color? You know, well, I'll tell you my favorite color. And you know, he was so gracious with the kids. It was neat to see. So wish him best, and can't wait to see him back in St. Louis. 3-1 to count on Ryan Zimmerman. Lance was a big part of that 2011 championship team. That year he made his debut and then pitched out of the bullpen. And was terrific down the stretch. And I know a lot of people point to the blueprint of the Kansas City Royals and how good their bullpen has been. Get through 6 and you've got shutdown guys. Well, go back and look at the 2011 pen. That was a pen that was sensational. Very similar to what the Kansas City Royals have accomplished. Speaking of championships, 30,000 fans ages 16 and older have the opportunity to take home a replica of the 2006 World Series trophy. Tickets are available at cardinals.com/promotions. Nice to visit with David Eckstein and Chris Duncan on this last homestand, and every Tuesday night a former player of the 06 team will be in town.
Chris Duncan had 22 home runs that year. I remember you saying that last week. Not forgotten that. He was a good hitter, but I didn't realize he had that many home runs.
Huge down the stretch, along with Preston Wilson, who had 9 home runs in August once he was picked up. Anthony Rendon, a base hit to center his first time up. Rendon with a base hit back in the second, along with Stephen Drew, as Leake pitched around trouble. Everything begins with starting pitching, and the Cardinals trying to still find traction with that. Went back and looked at this, Tim, dating back to May 12th. If you take Leake out of the equation, this is May 12th. The rotation ERA is near 9, minus Leake.
Yeah, the inconsistency throughout the starters for the Cardinals, but Leake has been consistent, and took him a while to get everything unraveled.
The 1-2 pitch, hit out of play.
See, that's what we're saying. You pitch inside to get them out of way. That last pitch was inside, but you saw how timid Rendon was going after that pitch away, a little flailing at it a little bit. That's what that inside pitch has you do.
Little backup breaking ball and a strike. You can see Molina wanted that on the outside portion.
And usually if a catcher has to go from the outside part of the plate to the middle of the plate, you won't get the strike. But Molina did.
So 2 outs, runner at first, and it brings in Wilson Ramos. Matt Holliday is not in the starting lineup tonight. We talked about the fact that the Cardinals going with a lot of lefties in this lineup. Is Wainwright on the right, Garcia on the left. Ramos fly to right, his first time up.
Some guys like the ball down, some guys like the ball up. But the lethal hitters, home run hitters, are the guys who like the ball inside. That's why with a guy this big, if you're going to make a mistake, make it away with 2 outs.
And he stayed away on the first 2 pitches.
Too dangerous a hitter inside.
You were doing the World Series, the Angels and the Giants, in a play that I'll never forget from that World Series. One was the Bonds home run that was just hit. It's probably still going. That was at Angel Stadium.
Tim Salmon said, and you could read his lips, that's the longest ball I've ever seen hit.
Right. And the other play, J.T. Snow picking up Darren Baker, Dusty's son, who now
was
is
2, I believe, at the time.
He was, yeah, 2,
He's
3.
16 now, so
Right.
he was 2 years old then.
And he's headed to Cal Berkeley to play baseball.
Junior in high school now.
It's amazing. 3-1.
Even with the count 3-0, a slider outside part of the plate to Ramos.
So just think, Tim, you were behind the plate when a guy changed the game, and Bob Gibson, with the rule change of lowering the mound, and then you're in the booth.
He did that.
And Darren Baker changed the game in terms of how old you have to be a bat boy. They sit into right.
That's just good hitting by Ramos, but all 5 pitches, Mike Leake staying away from Ramos. He finally singles the other way.
So here's what Tim is talking about, the Chevy Fox tracks and staying away with 2 strikes. Not a bad pitch.
Not a bad pitch at all. Sometimes you just tip your cap to that hitter, and that's one of those times.
Nationals have had 1 plate appearance with a man in scoring position. That was Espinosa with 2 outs, first and third, and now here's Drew, their second chance. Ground ball, and Adams was playing near the line and steps on the bag. We played 4, and the Cardinals, behind a Diaz home run, lead at 1-0. All right, Scotty, thank you. Colton Wong, Greg Garcia, Mike Leake here in the top of 5. 1-0 Cardinals on an Aledmys Diaz home run. Joe Ross, young guy, debuted at the age of 22 a year ago. Went 5-5 in 13 starts. And a swing and a miss, and we're underway here in the 5th inning. The Nationals about a month ago in St. Louis swept the Cardinals. That pitch has popped up. First time since June of 1986 for this franchise to sweep the Cardinals in St. Louis. Then they were the Expos. Andres Galarraga, Tim Wallach, Tim Raines, the Hawk, Andre Dawson. Mitch Webster, I think, was on that team.
Yes, he was.
There's a fly ball into shallow left center. One away. Don't miss the chance to relive one of the best moments in Cardinals history. June 4th, 30,000 fans ages 16 and older receive an Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina dual bobblehead. Presented by Central Bank of St. Louis.
Get a warm feeling. That series, let's see, the Red Sox played up there this year in Montreal, a 2-game series. And you get such a warm feeling because most people in and around baseball think that baseball will return to Montreal in maybe a decade. They need a stadium, but I think during the next expansion it would be right for that.
Greg Garcia base hit into center. On base for the second time. The kid, Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, couple of Hall of Famers. Gary in the top 5 all-time of games caught. Remember, the club was founded in 1969 as the Montreal Expos.
We played the first games up there.
Yep.
Cardinals.
First major league team in
Dal
Canada.
Maxwell hit an opposite field grand slam home run at Parc Jarry. Mac Jones hit 2 home runs. It's the worst playing surface of any field I've ever experienced.
And probably a little chilly too.
Oh my gosh.
Their only postseason appearance, you may recall, was the short season because of the strike, 1981. And they lost to the Dodgers in 5 games.
Rick Mundy's home run off Steve Rogers on a 3-1 pitch.
They called it Blue Monday.
Yeah,
for that.
Right.
There's a double play. Midway through 5. Cardinals on top. Major League Baseball brought to you by T-Mobile. Garrett Cole against Arizona today. 5 innings, 7 hits. Jose Fernandez.
How about him? Kidding me?
He's nasty.
Huh.
And the Dodgers have promoted a teenager, Julio Urias, a 19-year-old, youngest starter to debut since Hernandez.
Jose Fernandez, I believe, won his 5th, right? Isn't he 5-0 now over the last month?
And Tim, he doesn't
Could be
lose
the pitcher of the month.
Doesn't lose at home.
No.
He's lost 1 time at home, I believe.
Yeah. That curveball. After Tommy John surgery, it's nice to see the native Cuban back.
Good for baseball.
Absolutely.
Switch hitting Danny Espinosa. Here's a 1-0 pitch, taken for his strike. Expos were part of expansion in 1969 along with San Diego. So the Dodgers knocked him out of the playoffs in 1981. Dodgers won the World Series over the Yankees in that season in 6 games, but their best team was 1994, and that was a season that was lost and finished no World Series. And that team was loaded. John Wetland, Pedro Martinez, Larry Walker, Marquise Grissom. That was a great team.
It was.
Brandon Moss, by the way, is out of the game, and Randall Grichuk takes over in center field. Hazelbaker shifts from center to left. We get word on to why Moss is out of the game. We'll pass it along.
It might be that that check swing in his last at bat. It was the last pitch he saw. Called out on strikes on a pitch similar to that slider from Mike Leake to Espinosa.
I want to amend that too. I believe that is, well, we can't tell up here. We're about a mile high, but I think that is the body of Brandon Moss at first base, and Adams is out.
Aha.
Yep, we're right.
Now Matt Adams is out of the game. Neither one of us know. But we'll try to find out as soon as we can. Can't remember him doing anything. The base hit to left field, running the bases.
But Tim, from up here, it looks like a bunch of dots playing baseball.
This is by far the highest press box in Major League Baseball. By far.
Yep. 3-2 pitch to Espinosa, the 8th place hitter, and he struck him out.
Good slider.
So there we are.
Hi, folks. Check this out now. Up, up, and away in the nation's capital. They look like players from Lilliput on the field.
Ross looks at a strike.
That's from Gulliver's Travels, right? Lilliputians. I used to think that was the neatest word, Lilliputian.
Why?
I don't know.
It just rolls off the tongue?
I don't know that it does, but I don't know why. Just weird that way. Fine.
I'm all right with it.
That's the one thing, Dan. You just accept my weirdness for.
Go right with it.
Go right and roll with it.
Well, I liked it today. I said, Tim, let's talk about this matchup as we're rolling into the ballpark. And there's a strikeout for Leake, and you said, no, hold on. Whoa. I got something really important to tell you. And then not only did you tell me, but then you diagrammed it for me, the battle.
Oh, yeah. That was the Battle of Chancellorsville, the South's greatest battle in the Civil War, won by the South. Stonewall Jackson's last major encounter, and his opponent fighting Joe Hooker, who nicknamed himself Joe Hooker, Fighting Joe.
Well, you had to show me, and you did.
Show you. Took an army of 27,000 in front of Hooker's embedded Union troops, 85,000, and crashed down on General Howard's right flank at about 7 at night.
More history coming up next inning. We head to the 6th. Leak looks sharp, and it's 1-0. Television, you can now stream games live on your mobile device. Just go to your app store. Stream the Cardinals wherever you go. Fox Sports Go app. We get word it is back stiffness for Matt Adams. Maybe he tweaked it on a swing. We'll find out more after the game with Jim Hayes. Hazelbaker, Diaz, and then the spot that was occupied by Adams now occupied by Grichuk. As Jeremy tries to bunt his way on, and there's strike one.
You know, you mentioned the World War II monument here in Washington. There are so many important things to do in this area, not only in Washington, D.C., but the surrounding area, the Civil War battlegrounds. So much history involved in a 100-mile radius of this area, of where we are right now.
That's why I love this job. Not only do I love baseball, but I love taking in the different towns we go to and see what they feature. This is one of the best. Here's an 0-2 pitch. Hazelbaker lines it out to deep right field, backing up Harper, and makes the catch. So Jeremy is 1 for 3 on the night. Next time you want to grab Cardinal tickets, get the StubHub app. Not only will you find seats you'll love whenever you want, you can find the best seat for your buck when you sort by the best value. So get the StubHub app today.
Everybody knows the Cardinals playing in the postseason so many times, with 12 out of the last 16 years most recently. But just think about Washington and the plight of the Senators originally. I think 1924 is the last World Series won by this franchise. The Senators Expos Nationals.
Senators started in 1901. Then they were here till 1960. Moved to Minnesota to become the Twins.
Yeah.
The second Washington Senators team was formed in 61 through 71, and they had one winning season, and the manager of that team was Ted Williams. That was the only winning season they had that second time through.
Then Williams took the team to Texas for a time, for about a year, right?
Ted was Arlington. He was there for 1 year.
Yeah.
Was thinking about this though, coming to Washington. 1969, Ted Williams is your manager for baseball. As Diaz squibs it foul. Vince Lombardi was here with the Redskins. People forget Vince Lombardi coached the Redskins. He was obviously with the Green Bay Packers for so many years.
Yeah, I forgot.
Lefty Drizel, who was a famous college coach in hoops,
was at Maryland. It was at Maryland that year.
So you had three of the greatest coaches ever right here. Ted Williams was the manager of the year in 1969. Only award that Williams won and Joe DiMaggio did not. When you come to Washington, you also have to think about the history of the slugger Frank Howard. All 6'8", 275 pounds of him.
Who played for the most part, most of that 60s, the decade of the 60s. Most of it was with the Washington Senators. 1969, the All-Star game was played here. It was rained out. First night, Steve Carlton was starting pitcher. The next night, it was delayed a day, and Frank Howard hit a home run to right center field off lefty.
There's a chopper to third off the bat of Diaz. Rendon makes the play.
And I remember the night before, I'd met Jackie Robinson for the first time. I was with Bob Gibson that night, and Bob and I went to the White House, and Richard Nixon was the president. So we got all the play. I wasn't in the All-Star game, but I was a player representative for the Cardinals and here on a meeting. So we were invited too to meet Richard Nixon. And the only two players that would not go is Jackie Robinson and Bob Gibson. They would not go up to meet Richard Nixon. And I didn't know Jackie well enough, but I said, Bob, as the president of the United States, I know you don't agree with his policies, but you got to go out. He said, no, I don't. I'm not doing it. And when Bob said he's not doing it, believe me, he didn't do it.
Bob told me one of the most intimidating conversations he ever had, and he said, obviously, most of the time I'm the guy that intimidates others, was meeting Jackie Robinson. That's pulled foul by Grichuk.
Yeah, well, he knew him before '69, I believe, but Jackie and Bob and a number of black players were together that night, but Bob and Jackie were the only two players who didn't go up to meet Richard Nixon. As I said, there were two guys that if they said no, they meant no. Jackie Robinson and Bob Gibson.
Reading right now an incredible book about Jackie Robinson coming into the major leagues in Branch Rickey and the plight that he went through among his peers. A fly ball out to left to introduce Jackie Robinson to Major League Baseball. Incredibly interesting. The Jefferson Memorial here in our nation's capital. and the state of Missouri are teaming up to help you stop smoking. For more information, call the Quit line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Beautiful night here in our nation's capital. So it was 33 years that baseball was not in our nation's capital, America's pastime. But here we are in this brand new facility. I say brand new. 2008 it opened up. Here's Jason Worth, who's lined out and grounded out. Lines it to short, and the catch made by Diaz. And Jason Worth is 0 for 3. So far, Mike Leake has allowed just 3 base hits. Power Stats brought to you by Kubota. Drum roll, please. There they are, the Kubota Power Stats.
There you go.
Home run leaders: Harper with 11, Murphy with 7, who's on the bench, then Worth and Zimmerman. Big swing and a miss. I want to get your take on this. I asked FP Santangelo about this swing of Bryce Harper. It's a violent swing. He's a young man. He's 23. And FP is the color analyst of the Nationals. I said, do the Nationals get concerned with this swing holding up over 10 to 15 years? As violent as it is, and the body holding up. And he said, yeah, it's a little bit of a concern. I mean, it is a vicious, violent swing.
I don't buy that. No.
You're not in, huh?
No.
Harper out to deep right, and this game is tied.
It's because of that.
Facade in the upper deck.
And they're going to worry about violence in a swing over 15 years. Are you kidding me? You have enough swings like that. No, I don't buy that. I said it before he hit it. So don't penalize me.
You've been penalized.
That ball had to go 480 feet.
He put it off the Jackie Robinson name and retired number.
Yep. The facade right to the right of it.
So we're tied at 1-1, and it brings in Ryan Zimmerman.
That's what a swing
to right and walk.
Excuse me, Dan. That's what a swing like that will do. That's how much power Bryce Harper has. There is violence in the swing, but I've never heard of anybody worried about anybody's violence. I mean, Willie Mays, at age 21, being called up from the Birmingham Black Barons in 1951 with his swing, as violent as Mays's was for 21 years, 22 years. Nobody ever said, I'm worried about the violence in his swing. Hey, I don't buy that at all.
Hey, I'm just bringing something up here, baby.
I'm vehemently disagreeing with FP Santangelo, and I'll tell him tomorrow that I am. FP working with Bob Carpenter, the announcers, that made me mad.
I can tell. That's why I scooted over a couple of feet.
Hiya. Violent swing. Tie game.
Strikeout number 5 for Mike Leake. Here's Anthony Rendon. And there's strike 1. I thought it was really interesting what Jim talked about with John Mozeliak and Mike Matheny, and the way that Harper goes about playing the game, and they encourage it. They like it. I asked Mo a few weeks ago when Washington was in town. I said, there's guys that are saying he's the first $500 million player. And Mo just said, with a little smile, he said, I've been doing some numbers, thinking about this. It's not out of the realm of possibility. You know, he could certainly be the highest paid player for a long time. And you take into account sabermetrics, certainly his youth, the numbers that he's putting up,
his hair,
the amount of gel. a stylist, and it all adds up. Another key factor would be his agent, Scott Boras. Into center field and a base hit.
That, by the way, the first run that the Nationals have scored in the last 15 innings. Steven Matz of the Mets shutting them down yesterday afternoon. This is a tough lineup. And this is perhaps the tough outside Harper, the toughest hitter in their lineup tonight. Ramos.
He's 1 for 2 on the night with a base hit to right. Also flied out to right. Short lead at first by Rendon. And a ground ball got him to reach. A force play at second. And the Nationals have tied it up with a solo home run from Bryce Harper, his 12th of the season. With that violent swing that'll last forever. It's 1-1. A Cardinals player hits a home run. The Gateway Honda dealers donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Missouri. Speaking of home runs, looking forward to the estimated distance on that home run. Here's Stephen Piscotty. Is Ross, the starter for the Nationals, pitching into the 7th. Piscotty, Moss, and Molina. Good changeup. We talked a lot about the slider, and we're talking now about the BJC Healthcare Difference Maker. Most hits by 2 teammates, 25 or younger. Piscotty and Diaz on that list. Jackie Bradley Jr., by the way, trying to make it 30 straight games for Boston tonight. He's 0 for 3. The slider by Ross was taught in spring training to him by Jonathan Papelbon. A couple of different grips that he has with that.
Now that slider, a very dangerous pitch. It's a 1-1 ball game because of the slider. The slider to Diaz, the slider to Harper.
Up the middle, base hit.
The slider to Piscotty. It's a dangerous pitch. There are times, from a catcher's standpoint, where you're calling the pitch and you see it churning. We talked about the cement mixer and little washing machine, and it's spinning, and it's got hit me hard on it. Sometimes you want to reach out and interfere like a ball like that Harper hit or that Diaz hit. But the Cardinals with their leadoff man on here in the 7th inning.
And it brings in Moss. He's gone from left field to first base. Matt Adams out with a back issue. Moss is grounded out and also struck out looking.
I wonder why they wouldn't shift even with the man on first base. What difference does it make? They've got the shortstop on the left side of the infield. Normally they don't do that.
Never with Moss.
No.
Hits it towards short, and it sneaks under the glove of Espinosa. It's a base hit for Moss. Back-to-back singles.
That's a weird defense, and that was a hit because it was a weird defense. Otherwise, it could have been a double play. 2 out, nobody on. As it stands, there are 2 on and nobody out. Go figure. Don't think that shift doesn't come up and bite teams sometimes.
Oh, sure.
I mean, everybody has a tendency to think that that's not the case, that it works all the time. That is simply not true.
This is the second plate appearance for the Cardinals with a runner in scoring position all night. And here's Yadier Molina in a 1-1 game. Oliver Perez, a lefty, starts to throw in the pen. And it's fouled back and out of play. Molina has lined out to second, also grounded out to second, 0 for 2. Cardinals had this spot yesterday in the 9th with Rendon on the mound. Nobody out, Molina up first and second. They elected to try to bunt in a move that did not pay off.
I know we've talked about it, but here's a guy who's always around the plate. He's a ground ball pitcher, and a hit and run in this situation is not out of the realm of being the right play. Think about it. Yadi's not a fast runner. Any ground ball to a guy in the infield is probably going to be a double play. You send the runners, you stay out of it. It's up to Yadi to make contact, and he does that all the time.
Here's a 1-1 pitch. Now the question would be a base hit to right. Could you score Stephen Piscotty?
It doesn't matter because there's nobody out. You're not going to worry about it. Yadi, I think, thought that pitch was high, but looked like a strike.
Thinking out loud, you've got Harper playing in, and you're right, nobody out. And with his arm, no reason to test that.
No.
Ooh, up and in. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Colton Wong is on deck. He's grounded out to second, also flied out to center field. And Yadi now a chance to put the Cardinals back on top. Diaz, a solo home run, made it 1-0. Then Harper tied it up with a home run of his own. The 2-2 pitch. Now time is called.
I could hear it but couldn't see it. Is that home plate umpire John Trumpain? I guess did it. Sometimes a catcher, I think Ramos really called it, and that's why Trumpain immediately called timeout. It's a good way to hurt a pitcher like that. If he starts into his motion and has to stop, good way to tear something in the shoulder, the elbow.
And it's up to the umpire as to whether or not he wants to grant that.
That's right.
Solely on him. The 2-2. And a strikeout of Molina. Big strikeout for Ross, his 4th of the night. Plaza Tire Service, Fox Tracks.
Hey, Ross, who has featured a 2-seam fastball, one that sinks all night, went to a 4-seam fastball to get Molina. The way you could tell at home is a 4-seamer normally is above the belt. A 2-seamer is below the belt.
Wong hits it out of play. Strike one. So runners at first and second. No balls, one strike. Colton with only 4 extra base hits so far this year. Home run, a double, 2 triples. The 0-1.
Trying to pitch Wong up. Normally in a situation like this, double play situation, Wong a fast runner, you're probably not going to get the double play, so go to his weakness, and that's the fastballs up.
I really thought Dusty Baker may go to the lefty in this spot to face Wong, and Garcia, left-handed bat on deck, but he's rolling the dice right now with Ross. Now the Cardinals have a bench that's loaded from the right side. Fryer, Tejada, Holiday, and Jerko. The 1-1 pitch. Some of these pitches starting to get up. Pitch count at 107.
But I mean, this guy's got to be a starting pitcher for you. I'm sure that's what Dusty's thinking right now. I mean, if he's going to be in the rotation, you got to give him situations like this to work himself out of it. That was hittable.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Average pitches per start, 92. The 2-2 pitch to Colton Wong with 2 runners on. And now arguably the biggest pitch in the game upcoming. 3-2.
I don't think Mike Matheny's going to do it, but I'd send the runners right here. I mean, Wong's not a guy who's seen a lot of fastballs. He'll probably get another one. Not going to double him up. So we'll see. Mike Matheny normally 3-2. Does not like to send the runners with less than 2 outs.
The 3-2 pitch. They don't go. It's a ground ball, and it's 2. Out there. Out there. 4-6-3 on the double play. So Mike Leake now pitching into the bottom of the 7th. Only 82 pitches on the night. Lone mistake, the pitch to Harper for a solo home run, and that pitch taken outside by Stephen Drew, followed by Espinosa, and then probably a pinch hitter for Joe Ross.
Yesterday afternoon in the 9th inning, the Cardinals runners on at first and second, nobody out, trailing 9-8 to the Cubs. They failed to score. Tonight, tied ball game in the 7th. First and second, nobody out. Get a pop out and then a double play ball. I think you just have to send the runners in that situation, Dan. I mean, for me. I know Mike doesn't like to do that, but the Cardinals have to do that because they're not a fast team. I know that sounds the opposite, but you don't need fast runners when you send the runners.
What you're talking about is trying to generate offense outside of home runs.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
You know, Cardinals have been relying on that home run.
Yeah. And, you know, you don't know how long that's going to keep up, but in my opinion, you got to send the runners in that situation. I know Mike doesn't like to do it, but
3-2 the count. Leake has walked 1 tonight. And a ground ball pulled foul. We have a big Cardinal fan, young lady watching us tonight, feeling a little bit under the weather. And we wish Thelma Warner nothing but the best and want to see her at the ballpark very, very soon. It's Thelma Warner. Stephen Drew, a couple of hard hit balls tonight, singled into right, then grounded out sharply to, at the time, Matt Adams at first base.
Yeah, Mike Leake has been working Stephen inside all night. See if he goes away. Yep, Yachty's.
And it's popped up. Shift was on. Leake is under it, and who wants it? It's dropped. Oh, it's caught. Molina there with a little smile and the baseball.
Scored 6-3 or 6-2. Beg your pardon. I think Diaz touched it first, right?
Might go 6-1-3, or no, I'm sorry, 6-1-2. Could go.
Oh, Leake touched it also?
I think he may have.
It was caught before the ball hit the ground. Now, it's not the Cardinal way. The Cardinal way does not have that in the handbook. Was that Leake and Diaz that had a glove on it?
Sure was.
It sure was. Nice call, partner. I didn't see that. So it's 1-6-2, the put out.
Wow.
Never seen that.
Oh, yeah. That's drilled out to deep right field, and the Nationals have the lead. Danny Espinosa. And it's 2-1 Washington.
You saw the reaction of Yadier Molina on that, catching that pop fly. And you could see Yadier slamming that mitt down against the thigh, and then Mike Leake doing the same thing 3 or 4 times.
What has been such a well-pitched game tonight for Mike Leake?
Certainly has.
So the pinch hitter is Clint Robinson. Robinson, a base hit. The Cardinals now with activity in their pen. Well, the Cardinals have been very good with their pinch hitters. So have the Nationals. They've got 6 home runs off their bench. The Cardinals with 9. Now Robinson connects, and we're back to the top of the lineup. And it's tapped foul by Ben Revere.
Yeah, there have only been 36 pinch hit home runs in the major leagues this year. And these 2 teams have 15 of them. 9 for the Cardinals, 6 for the Nationals. Of course, the one Espinosa hit was not of the pinch hit variety.
But you get the idea. They've been very good.
Yeah.
Back to Leak. Out at second. And it's a double play. The Cardinals turned their first double play of the night. 2 pitches and a 2-1 lead for Washington. It was the home run in the 6th off the bat of Bryce Harper. And then Danny Espinosa moments ago with his 4th home run, his 17th RBI. The Nissan drive of the game. As we head to a timeout, we head to the 8th. Nationals on top in game number 1. This is to Felipe Rivero, hard-throwing lefty. He's had 23 appearances. You see the ERA, it's above 4. But he comes at you with a lot of velocity. Hard thrower. And one thing that stands out at times has been a lack of control with 24 walks this year coming out of the pen.
Yeah, you have to work him as Matt Holliday leads it off here, but you really have to make sure the pitches are in the strike zone.
So Holliday pinch hitting for Garcia.
He is a hard thrower, as you said, Dan.
This has been a very good bullpen for Dusty Baker's club since May 9th. So a span of 16 games. Collectively, the bullpen ERA is .89.
I don't think it's a bad idea to make this guy throw a strike. Take a strike. You're going to get the fastball one after the other for the most part.
1 ball, 1 strike. Opponents hitting just .211 against this bullpen. Most home runs by pinch hitters, as we talked about. Cardinals with 9. They have 28 hits from their pinch hitters and a .360 average. Here's a 1-1. Holliday had a home run in yesterday's ball game, a 3-run shot into the Cardinal bullpen in the opposite field. Most of the time, of course, Matt is in that starting lineup as a pinch hitter. This year, he's 2 for 3. Rivero last year 49 appearances, a record of 2-1 with an ERA of 2.79. And a call, third strike on Holiday.
It's that fastball from Rivero. Yeah, I think Matt thought that ball was high, and I agree with him. But Rivero got the call.
Joe Ross, as you get a look at Jerko, went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, struck out 4, 1 run, 1 walk, and the home run to Diaz. Jerko is swinging a miss. Excuse me, 7 innings for Joe Ross. Quickly, no balls, 2 strikes. Jerko 1 for 7 as a pinch hitter this year. Outfield is straight away for the Cardinal second baseman, utility man. Look at that 95 from Rivero.
Well, get it up there. Try to zero in on a fastball where you know it's coming. Make sure he gets it down. The guy who throws that hard, you're going to pull the fastball down more than you will the fastball up.
And a ground ball that's hit to short. Loved by Espinosa, but no play in the air. The 4th error on Danny Espinosa. And it opens the door ever so slightly here for the Cardinals.
Second ball that Danny has misplayed tonight. Of course, he did have the home run to put the Nationals ahead.
Almost could see that coming.
Yeah, yeah.
Not an easy play by any means.
He's going to have to sidearm the throw. And now a pinch runner, Ruben Tejada, for Jed Jerko.
Only position player left for the Cardinals on their bench is Eric Fryer. And a fastball. A strike to Hazelbaker. Hazelbaker has singled to right. He has struck out and also lined out. Jeremy has shown that he can hold his own against left-handed pitching this year.
Well, that's a nasty slider right there. Well, to give you an idea about Rivero, fastball 60, almost 63% of the time. That slider was that last pitch that Hazelbaker threw. Hazelbaker will not get the changeup, but he's given up 7 extra base hits to left-handed batters. That's all.
Ground ball to second, out there to first. They throw it away, but they'll catch a break with the screen in front of the dugout. Reminder that MLB.TV Premium is there for you, the #1 live streaming sports service. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details. Dusty Baker not going to his pen. It's Rivero to face Aledmys Diaz, who is homered. And Mike Maddox, pitching coach this season for the Nationals. 2 outs, and Diaz looks at a strike. The Nationals were trying to turn their 4th double play of this game.
That might be the best he's got. That move to first base. I have not seen Rivero that much to know, nor have I talked to Mike Maddox about that. I mean, that's something you don't talk to a pitching coach about. What kind of move does a reliever have?
It's always about what kind of stuff does he have.
Yeah, right.
Hoping he doesn't have to use that move.
But it is a good running situation. If Hazelbaker reads him well, reads that right leg, that's what the good base runners do, because when that right leg passes the left leg, when he's attempting to throw the ball home, he's forced to go home. He can't go to first base.
Hazelbaker with 3 stolen bases this year in 5 attempts.
Base runners refer to that as a quick pick. He's picking up his foot quickly. And when you pick up your foot quickly, that in some ways is a deterrent to a base runner at first base. So if you do it quickly enough, then they can't tell whether you go behind that left leg or not. But that's what Hazelbaker, a good base runner, is looking at right now. The left leg.
Short lead at first, and the 2-1. Diaz hits a fly ball down the right field line. Harper will give chase, and it's out of play. Two and 2. And a fly ball lifted out to left. There's Jason Worth, and he puts it away. Cardinals have left 3 on tonight. Rivero a scoreless 8th. Baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Bud Light. Raise 1-2 right now. And by your local Volkswagen dealer. Beautiful night here in our nation's capital. Good ball game. 2-1. Nationals leading the Cardinals. As we move to the bottom of the 8th. Cardinals have a new third baseman. That's Tejada. He stays in the game. And a new pitcher as well, Sung-Won Oh. Our Chevy called to the pen. Oh, and the rare blemish. What has been a good resume in his first major league season against the Cubs. But this guy has been outstanding.
It's about the only bad game he had was yesterday when he gave up the 3 runs in 1 inning.
It was a home run to Chris Bryant.
Uh-huh.
One ball, 1 strike. It'll be Worth, Harper, and Zimmerman. Hits it the other way. Slicing towards a line and a foul ball.
Let me run this by you to give you an idea of how many home runs Henry Aaron hit. 755 home runs. Jason Worth's played in the major leagues for 12+ years, about 12¼ years. He just turned 36, and on April 19th he hit his 200th home run. And he's a guy that you would consider a slugger.
Sure.
But again, that gives you an idea of how many home runs Henry Aaron had. 755.
And then look at all the home runs, and we talked about it when we were down in Atlanta. Second series of the year, all the home runs he had after his age 35 season. It's incredible.
It's just unbelievable.
I mean, for some guys, it's a career. There's a ground ball, got him to reach, taken there by Moss. I think a good question would be, how many will he wind up with before it's all said and done?
Excellent segue, because one of those, his 12th of the year, came on this breaking ball to Bryce Harper, and it was clubbed a ton to right field. Mercy me.
As Jim Edmonds called it, that's the tornado zone. You see why.
Usually that tornado is in the form of a bat coming through that red area.
And I guess, Tim, you think about protection around him. How many pitches a game will he see to hit? I mean, he's not in the Barry Bonds status yet.
No.
Which no one would even pitch to Bonds.
Of course, Bonds became that type of hitter about when he was 10 years older, I think.
Without question.
Yeah, yeah.
I know some fans don't like him. I love watching this guy play. Always have.
Play. Oh, boy. It's one of those terms in baseball that is held for one of the highest forms of reverence. He's an animal, and he is. When players say that about another player, it's reverential.
Great respect.
Yes.
The 2-2. I found it really interesting. It was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. There was a quiet poll, if you will, a silent poll of major league players in which they would not be named, as saying who was the most overrated player in the game, and it was Bryce Harper. And the way I took that was more of a jealousy thing than anything, because he's a terrific player.
Yeah,
but
and
when you're young,
the way
the adulation.
Yeah, and the way he goes about getting it done, too. I mean, he's flashy. You don't like him when you play against him. There are a lot of players like that, though, that are good.
Exactly.
When they're good, you don't like them when you play against them.
I bet if you ask those guys honestly, who would you want to have on your team in the middle of your lineup, this would be one of the answers.
In a second.
And he's late with that swing, and picks up the strikeout. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. It's Harper, it's Trout, it's Machado. Great young players coming up. Just thinking this particular area. One night you go watch Bryce Harper play right field. The other night you go to Baltimore and you're watching Manny Machado play third base or short.
You bet. Orioles a couple of games back in the American League East. I believe it's I think it's 2 games behind Boston going into tonight, right? We'll find that out shortly. I will. Yes, there were 2 back of Boston going in, with Jackie Bradley 0 for 3 going for his 30th consecutive game hitting streak.
Papelbon is getting loose, the closer for the Nationals. Check swing did not go.
That was close. It's tougher to check a swing for a power hitter than it is for a guy who hits singles. You're a power hitter, you have to generate so much strength, and it's tough to stop the bat through the strike zone.
And a ground ball that's hit to short, gloved by Diaz. And he flips over to Moss. 12 saves on the year, 361 in his career. Randall Grichuk leads it off against Jonathan Papelbon when we come back. They use 0 in the 8th after 7 strong innings from Mike Leake. Gave up 2 home runs. That's the difference in the game. And now it's Randall Grichuk against Jonathan Papelbon. This is our Chevy called to the pen. Papelbon with 12 saves on the year, 12 of 14. And Grichuk coming in midway in this game after Matt Adams dealt with a sore back. And Randall coming off a very good homestand in which he hit .360 with a couple of home runs and 6 RBIs. Papelbon, 4-time All-Star with Boston. His last blown save was against the Cardinals, or The blown save against St. Louis was while being a member of the Red Sox in 2008. Fastball and a strike.
Well, that's 7 years.
After Boston, it was Philly, and now here in Washington. 1 ball, 1 strike on Randall Grichuk. Got him out in front. Ground ball to short. 1 away.
That's that pitch that Papelbon refused to throw in Boston for whatever reason, but it's a splitter, and it's a good one.
Reminder, will be on Fox Sports Midwest tomorrow. Fox Saturday Baseball over the weekend, and then back with you on Midwest on Sunday. So 4 games, including tonight, right here on Fox Sports Midwest and Fox Saturday Baseball. Here's Stephen Piscotty. There's a base hit to center field. We are in the top of the 9th. Papelbon pitched at Mississippi State. Wanted to be a starter in Boston. But this has proved to be the right choice for him. He's been one of the top closers in the game for the better part of a decade.
Even though the circumstances that kept him here are very unusual after that incident in the dugout last year with Bryce Harper, and if it were anybody else, it would have been poo-pooed and forgotten. But he actually choked Harper in the dugout, and how he's still with Washington is remarkable to me.
I didn't think there was any chance he'd be back.
I didn't either. I mean, with a high-priced star like Harper, with the future of Bryce Harper, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing for him to be back, because I think he's a very talented guy. But normally, things like that would not happen.
On a hop to second, nice play. Stephen Drew. 2 outs. Our Budweiser player of the game, Joe Ross, gives up 1 run for Dusty Baker's club. 7 innings, 6 hits. The home run to Diaz, walked 1 and 4 strikeouts, 110 pitches. So the Cardinals down to Brandon Moss.
Pretty good matchup right here, Dan. Brandon Moss is thinking one thing, tying the game. He's got the power to do it.
And they're on their feet here at Nationals Park. First pitch popped up, and this should do it. Zimmerman wants it. He's got it. And the Nationals take game 1 of this 4-game series by the final of 2-1. Well, partner, it was well pitched on both sides.
It certainly was. Mike Leake, a great performance, a better performance by Joe Ross. Save for Papelbon, and the game-winning home run by Danny Espinosa.